I still remember the first day I walked into Westbridge Solutions. It was a mid-sized construction management firm, nothing fancy on the outside, but inside it felt like a family. At least that's how it seemed at first. I had just turned 30, still young enough to be full of ambition but old enough to have a good amount of experience under my belt. They hired me on as a contracts manager. My job was simple but critical. I handled the big deals, the partnerships with suppliers, the agreements with subcontractors, the real veins of the business. If those contracts fell apart, so did the whole operation. From day one, the owner, Mr. Grant, treated me with a kind of cautious respect. He was an old-school guy, probably pushing 70 but sharp as a knife. His son Tyler, on the other hand, was a different story. Tyler was in his mid-20s, fresh out of some expensive business school, and he thought he knew everything. If there was ever a perfect poster child for entitlement, it was him. But at the start, we kept out of each other's way. I focused on my work. He focused on, well, whatever the hell he was doing most of the time. Over the next 2 years, I built up a solid system. I standardized our contracts, negotiated better deals, saved the company hundreds of thousands without anyone even asking me to. I wasn't flashy. I didn't go around looking for pats on the back. I figured my results would speak for themselves, and for a while they did. Mr. Grant gave me small bonuses here and there, little nods of appreciation. It wasn't much, but it was enough. I had no reason to believe anything would ever change. But then about 6 months ago, rumors started floating around. Mr. Grant wasn't coming into the office as much. Some whispered about his health, others said he was just tired, ready to retire. And right around that same time, Tyler started showing up more and more. He wasn't just lingering around the office anymore, he was sitting in on meetings, questioning decisions, walking around like he already owned the place. I could smell it a mile away. He was being groomed to take over. At first, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he'd matured. Maybe he had learned something in business school after all. I even went out of my way to include him in meetings about the contracts I was negotiating. I showed him the systems I had built, explained how I maintained relationships with our most critical partners. I thought if he understood the importance of what I did, he'd value it, and me. Big mistake. It started with small things. He'd roll his eyes in meetings, cut me off when I was speaking, suggest changes that made no sense, like terminating long-term contracts that had saved us massive amounts of money just because he wanted more agile partnerships. He used buzzwords like weapons, slinging them around without understanding a damn thing behind them. Still, I kept my head down. I figured it wasn't worth making enemies. Tyler was the boss's son. If he needed to flex a little ego, fine, as long as the work got done. Then came that Tuesday morning. It was a normal day, at least at first. I had a few contract renewals lined up, some important negotiations to wrap up with 2 of our biggest suppliers. Without those suppliers, several major projects would stall out. I walked into the office, coffee in hand, and noticed a weird vibe. People were whispering, glancing at me when they thought I wasn't looking. I brushed it off, maybe another rumor about Mr. Grant's health. I sat down at my desk and started firing off emails like usual. That's when Tyler walked in. No hello, no good morning, just a cocky smirk stretched across his face like he had just won the lottery. Hey, he said casually, I need you to clear out your stuff. We're making some changes. Your position's been consolidated. I blinked at him, thinking it had to be a joke. Consolidated? There was no one else who even knew how to do what I did. No warning, no meeting, no write-up, nothing, just like that, fired. I opened my mouth to ask what the hell was going on, but before I could say anything, he laughed. Actually laughed, like a full-on chuckle, right in my face. It wasn't just a nervous laugh either, it was mean. He was enjoying this. You'll be fine, he said, waving his hand like I was some minor inconvenience. Best of luck, buddy. And just like that, he turned on his heel and sauntered off down the hall. I sat there frozen for a second. It was so sudden, so cold, I didn't even know how to react. But then, as I looked around my desk, something clicked in my brain. Tyler thought he had won. He thought kicking me out was the end of the story. He didn't realize I still controlled the contracts, all of them. The supplier relationships, the renewal contacts, the partnership authorizations, they all ran through me. Nobody else had the passwords. Nobody else had the renewal terms memorized. Nobody else had the personal relationships I had spent years building. Tyler had just fired the one person who could keep this company glued together, and he didn't even know it yet. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding but a slow smile curling at the corner of my mouth. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. I didn't storm out, I didn't throw a fit, I didn't even ask to speak to someone higher up, which was funny, considering there was really no one higher up anymore besides Mr. Grant, and he was practically invisible these days. No, I did what years in the real world had taught me. I stayed calm, I acted polite. I packed my things slowly and neatly into a box, just like any loyal employee who had been blindsided would do. I knew how these games worked. The more professional I looked walking out the door, the easier it would be for me to move the chess pieces once I was gone. I glanced around the office as I packed. Half the staff were too cowardly to make eye contact. A few of the younger guys looked downright uncomfortable, like they knew this was wrong but didn't know what to do about it. I didn't blame them. They had rent to pay, mouths to feed. Nobody wants to be the next head on the chopping block. As I slipped my personal laptop into my bag, I felt the company-issued laptop buzzing slightly. A new email had come through. Out of habit, I clicked it open before I shut the device down for good. It was from Tyler. No subject line, no greeting, just a few cold lines. Effective immediately, please transfer all contract ownerships to management. Provide passwords to shared drives and notify partners of the change. I sat back and smiled. That was Rich. He thought it worked like that. A quick email and the messy, complicated web of relationships I had carefully spun over the years would just fall into his lap. He really didn't get it. The thing about contracts, real contracts, big contracts, is that they aren't just files sitting on a drive. They're relationships, handshakes, quiet promises made over years. They're complicated little machines built on trust, and once you smash that trust, good luck putting it back together. And Tyler had just smashed it with a sledgehammer. Still, I wasn't about to leave them completely high and dry. I wasn't that petty. And besides, if things were going to fall apart, I didn't want it traced back to me. I had spent too long building a reputation. No, I was going to walk away clean. Let the fire start naturally without me striking a single match. I wrote a quick, polite response. Acknowledged, as discussed, certain contracts require my authorization personally for transition per partner agreement terms. Happy to assist with a formal handover upon request. Short, professional, impossible to attack legally. I shut the laptop down for the last time, slid it onto the desk, and stood up. The box of my belongings felt heavier than it should have as I carried it through the hallway, past faces that quickly turned away when I met their eyes. Funny how fast people can pretend not to know you. When I reached the front door, I took one last look around. This place had been a second home to me for years. I had poured my time, my energy, my loyalty into it. And now, it wasn't even mine to be angry about anymore. It was Tyler's little playground now. Fine. Let him have it. I pushed through the glass doors and stepped out into the crisp morning air. The world outside felt fresh, like I had been holding my breath inside that office for too long. As I walked to my car, I felt the strangest thing, not anger, not sadness, but something almost close to excitement. Because deep down, I knew something Tyler didn't. The contracts that kept Westbridge Solutions alive, they weren't just contracts on paper. They were held together by relationships, trust, and respect. 3 things Tyler didn't have and couldn't fake. It was only a matter of time before the suppliers started asking questions. Only a matter of time before the subcontractors started pushing back. And when that happened, good luck running the show, kid. I tossed the box onto the passenger seat of my car, slid into the driver's seat, and sat there for a second with my hands on the wheel. There was a part of me that wanted to just drive away and forget the whole mess. Start fresh somewhere else, new job, new company. But another part of me, the part that had spent years learning how the game really worked, knew that wasn't the end of it. No, if Tyler wanted to play games, I was going to show him what happened when you fired the one person keeping your house of cards standing. And the best part, all I had to do was sit back and watch it fall. It didn't even take a week for the first cracks to show. I was sitting at home, flipping through TV channels and half-heartedly scrolling through job listings when my phone buzzed. It was a number I recognized immediately, one of our biggest subcontractors, a guy named Mark who ran a large electrical firm we'd been working with for years. Mark was old school like me. He valued loyalty, straight talk, and handshake deals over legalese and fine print. At first, I thought about ignoring the call. After all, I was Westbridge Solutions anymore. I had no obligation to pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. I answered. "Hey man," Mark said, getting straight to the point. "What's going on over there?" I could hear the irritation bleeding through his voice. Mark wasn't the type to dance around things. If he was calling me, it meant something serious was brewing. "What do you mean?" I asked, playing it careful. I wasn't about to badmouth my old employer, yet. "Well, I just got an email from some kid named Tyler, telling me all contracts are being reviewed and we'll need to renegotiate new terms if we want to stay on the job. Said the old agreements were outdated and didn't fit the new company strategy." I nearly laughed right there on the phone. Tyler had done exactly what I feared and hoped he would do. He went in swinging without understanding what he was swinging at. "Mark," I said slowly, "you know me, you know the agreements we set up, you think they were outdated." "Hell no," Mark barked. "You saved both of us money, we were locked in for 2 more years at solid rates, now this kid's acting like he's doing me a favor by tearing it up." I stayed quiet, letting him vent. The longer he talked, the more damage Tyler was doing to himself. "What's the real deal, man?" Mark finally asked. "You getting pushed out?" I sighed. "Let's just say there's new leadership and a new approach." He was silent for a beat. "Yeah, well, good luck to M," he said darkly. "They just lost my guys." We ended the call with a promise to grab a beer sometime. But even after I hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at the ceiling. It was starting. I knew Mark wouldn't be the only one. The contracts I had in place weren't just numbers, they were strategic, thought-out alliances. Tyler thought he was clearing out dead wood. What he was really doing was yanking the supports out from under his own house. Sure enough, over the next few days, I started hearing more. Another subcontractor called to tell me they were pulling out of 2 major projects. A materials supplier emailed me directly at my personal email to say they had concerns about leadership stability and wanted to delay any new deliveries until things were clarified. In the construction world, those were polite ways of saying, "We don't trust you anymore." Every call, every email felt like a small stone thrown at a glass window. A few more and that glass was going to shatter. Meanwhile, I kept my head down. I didn't go online posting rants. I didn't badmouth Tyler or Westbridge publicly. I didn't need to. The beauty of it was that they were doing all the damage themselves. They had no idea how much behind-the-scenes work went into maintaining those partnerships. They thought it was automatic, like flipping a light switch. It was. The funniest part was that they still hadn't even changed the master contract database passwords. I could have logged in anytime, seen exactly what was happening. But I didn't. I didn't need to anymore. I already knew how this story ended. One night, about 2 weeks later, while eating takeout Chinese food on my couch, I got another call. This time from someone I didn't expect, Nancy, one of the senior project managers from Westbridge. Her voice was shaky. "Hey, I know you don't work here anymore, but would you be willing to meet for coffee?" I hesitated. It would have been so easy to say no, to tell her to figure it out herself, but part of me was curious. I wanted to hear how bad it really was. "Sure," I said finally, "tomorrow morning." "Please," she said, "it's a mess." I hung up, tossing my phone onto the couch and sinking deeper into the cushions. I let the words roll around in my head. It's a mess. Yeah. It was about to get a whole lot messier. I showed up 10 minutes early at the small cafe Nancy had picked. It was one of those quiet, tucked-away places where the tables were close enough that you could overhear other people's conversations if you really wanted to, perfect for secrets. I grabbed a seat by the window and ordered a black coffee. I wasn't hungry, but my stomach twisted with the kind of nerves you get when you know you're about to hear something you can't unhear. I leaned back in the wooden chair, sipping slowly, watching people pass by outside. The city moved on like it always did, indifferent to the chaos brewing inside one little company. When Nancy walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked exhausted. Hair pulled back into a rushed bun, dark circles under her eyes, the sharpness in her posture dulled into something slouched and beaten down. She spotted me, waved half-heartedly, and slid into the chair across from me like she was deflating. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, voice low. "No problem," I said. "You said it's a mess, tell me." She rubbed her temples before speaking, like she was trying to physically push the words out. "It's bad," she said. "Really bad. Tyler's been making changes, slashing budgets, firing experienced people, bringing in some of his friends from college who have no idea what they're doing. Contracts are falling apart. Suppliers are walking. Subcontractors are refusing to show up on site unless they get cash up front." I stayed quiet, letting her vent. It was all lining up exactly like I predicted, but hearing it confirmed out loud still hit different. "Last week," she continued, "one of the biggest projects we had, the Taylor Ridge build, they pulled the contract, said they lost confidence in our ability to deliver." She looked at me, eyes wide with disbelief. "It was a $4.5 million deal, gone just like that." I let out a low whistle, not because I was surprised, but because it deserved a reaction. "How Tyler handling it?" I asked. Nancy gave a dry, humorless laugh. He's blaming everyone but himself, accusing project managers of being lazy, telling suppliers they're replaceable, threatening subcontractors with legal action like he has a leg to stand on. She shook her head. It's like he's trying to burn the place down on purpose. I leaned forward slightly, lowering my voice. And Mr. Grant, where's he in all this? Her face darkened. Hospital, he had a mild stroke 2 weeks ago, stress-related they say, he's still recovering. No one wants to bother him with what's happening. I sat back, feeling a sick twist of anger in my gut. I respected Mr. Grant. Whatever his faults, he built Westbridge from the ground up. And now his son was running it straight into the ground while he lay in a hospital bed. Nancy stared at me for a long moment, chewing on her lip like she was debating whether to say something else. Finally, she spoke. We need help, she said, almost whispering. Real help. People trust you, suppliers, subs, clients. They'd listen if you reached out, they'd come back if you said the word. I blinked at her, caught off guard. You want me to's what, come back? She nodded. Not officially, not yet, but we're sinking. If something doesn't change, there's not going to be a company left to save in another month. I sat there, swirling the last of my coffee around in the cup. It was tempting. Part of me wanted to march back in, fix the mess, show everyone that Tyler wasn't half the leader he thought he was, but another part of me, the smarter part, knew it wasn't that simple. Tyler wouldn't just roll over and welcome me back. His ego wouldn't allow it, and legally I had no authority anymore. Helping them would mean stepping into a battlefield with no armor, no weapon, and a big fat target on my back. I sighed. Nancy, I appreciate the offer, I really do, but you're asking me to walk into a burning building without a fire hose. She slumped back, defeated. I hated seeing her like that. She was one of the good ones, sharp, loyal, hardworking. She didn't deserve to go down with the ship. I drummed my fingers on the table, thinking. There had to be a smarter way. A way to let the company save itself or crash and burn without dragging people like Nancy down with it. Maybe, just maybe, there was another move. I'll tell you what, I said finally. I'll make some calls, quiet ones, see if there's a way to put pressure where it needs to be put. Her eyes lit up with a spark of hope. You do that. I nodded. No promises, but I'll see what I can stir up. We stood, she thanked me again, and we went our separate ways. As I walked back to my car, the cold morning air hit my face and cleared my head. Tyler thought firing me was the end of the story. He was about to learn it was just the end of the first chapter. The real game was about to begin. The first call I made was to Steve. Steve wasn't just any supplier, he was the supplier. He handled almost all of Westbridge's framing materials, and over the years we'd built a strong bond. Not just business either. We'd had beers after late meetings, shared family stories, even played a few rounds of golf. He trusted me, and more importantly, I trusted him to know when to keep a secret. When he picked up, he sounded surprised. Man, I heard you were out, he said immediately. What the hell happened? I chuckled dryly. You know how it goes, new management, new ideas. Steve grunted, idiots. There was a pause. I could almost hear him leaning closer into the phone. You calling for a reason or just catching up? Little of both, I said. Off the record, how are things looking from your side? Bad, he said without hesitation. Really bad. They're trying to renegotiate supply agreements, but they have no leverage. They're desperate. I already pulled half my shipment lines, no credit terms, cash only now, and I'm not the only one. That was good to hear. It meant the pressure was building exactly where it needed to, at the lifelines. I chose my next words carefully. You think, hypothetically, if there was leadership change, things could get back to normal. He caught on immediately. If the right person was back in charge, absolutely, my whole team would be back on board. We spoke for a few more minutes, skirting around the details, but the message was clear. If the old Westbridge came back, even in spirit, suppliers like Steve would too. Over the next few days, I made a few more quiet calls. Subcontractors, vendors, even a few former project managers who had already jumped ship. The story was the same everywhere. No one trusted Tyler. Everyone missed the way things used to be. And they all said the same thing. If there was even a hint that someone competent was pulling the strings again, they'd be willing to give Westbridge another shot. It wasn't enough to just know that, though. I needed Tyler to feel it. I needed him to see just how alone he really was. That's when I made the real move. I reached out to Mr. Jacobs. Now, Mr. Jacobs was an important man, maybe the most important client Westbridge had. He was the CEO of a massive property development firm that fed Westbridge a steady stream of high-value contracts. Luxury apartments, commercial builds, you name it. Losing him would be like losing the engine of a plane mid-flight. He answered my call after just 2 rings. "Well, this is a surprise," he said warmly. "I heard about the changes over there." I smiled bitterly. "Yeah, about that, can we meet?" An hour later, we were sitting in his high-rise office, sunlight pouring through the floor-to-ceiling windows. He offered me coffee. I politely declined. I wanted to get straight to the point. "I'm not here to badmouth anyone," I said, "but you should know, a lot of key suppliers and contractors are quietly distancing themselves from Westbridge." He nodded slowly, steepling his fingers. "I figured as much." "They're not walking away because they're flaky," I continued. "They're walking because the leadership change destroyed the trust we spent years building." Jacob sighed heavily. "Trust is everything." I leaned forward slightly. "If I were you, I'd think very carefully before signing anything new with them, at least until things settle." He looked me dead in the eye. "Are you settling things?" It was a loaded question. I gave him the only honest answer I could. "I'm not part of Westbridge anymore, but if things keep heading the way they're heading, there won't be a Westbridge to settle." Jacobs nodded thoughtfully. He didn't say much more after that, but he didn't need to. His silence said everything. By the time I left his office, I knew the message had been delivered, loud and clear. And I wasn't wrong. 3 days later, I got a text from Nancy. "Jacobs froze all new projects, Tyler's freaking out." I stared at the screen, a slow grin spreading across my face. Tyler was finally feeling it. The cracks he created by firing me were widening into full-blown fractures. Without the projects from Jacobs' firm, Westbridge's cash flow would seize up within months. That night, I poured myself a drink and sat on my balcony, watching the city lights blink in the distance. I wasn't celebrating, not yet. But for the first time in weeks, I let myself hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, Tyler would realize he wasn't invincible. Hope that maybe the company I helped build could still be saved. Or, at the very least, hope that he'd finally feel what it was like to lose everything he took for granted. Because the fall hadn't even really started yet. But it was coming. And it was going to be hard. The real collapse didn't come with a loud crash. It started slowly, like the foundation of a building quietly giving way under too much weight. Little pieces cracking here and there, barely noticeable at first, but once it started, there was no stopping it. Nancy kept me updated with quiet texts every few days. I never asked for them. She just sent them, little glimpses into the chaos from the inside. Payroll issues. Subcontractors refusing to show up. Suppliers not answering calls anymore. Each message felt like another domino tipping over. And the best part, I hadn't lifted a single finger. Tyler had fired me thinking he was cutting dead weight. What he actually did was set a ticking time bomb underneath his own chair. Word around town traveled fast. In construction, your reputation isn't built on glossy brochures or fancy office spaces. It's built on whether you show up, pay on time, and treat people right. Westbridge had once stood for that. Now, everyone was treating it like a sinking ship. It all came to a head about a month after that first awkward meeting with Nancy. I wasn't there, obviously, I was long gone by then, but from what I heard and later confirmed from several people, it went down like this. Tyler scheduled an emergency town hall in the main office, told everyone they had to be there. Rumor was he was going to address the rumors and restore confidence. Classic Tyler, always thought the right buzzwords could fix a problem he didn't understand. The conference room was packed. Nancy said it was the fullest she'd ever seen it. People standing against the walls, arms crossed, faces tight with frustration. Tyler strutted in like he was giving a TED talk. She said he had this smug little smile like he still believed he was the smartest guy in the room. He started with the usual corporate nonsense, talking about transitional phases and short-term challenges and long-term vision. No real answers, no real solutions, just smoke and mirrors. But the staff, they weren't buying it. One by one, people started standing up, asking real questions, hard questions. Why are our suppliers refusing to work with us? Why are we losing our biggest clients? Why are our projects stalled out with no crews showing up? At first, Tyler tried dodging, blaming other people, saying it was the market, saying it was legacy deals he had to clean up, saying anything except the truth that he had no idea what he was doing and had burned every bridge that mattered. Then, according to Nancy, someone finally said it out loud. "I heard you fired the guy who kept all of this running." The room went dead silent. Tyler turned red, stammered something about changing outdated systems and bringing in new leadership. But it was too late. Everyone knew. The walls weren't just cracking anymore, they were collapsing, right on top of him. The very next morning, Nancy texted me again. 5 project managers resigned today, no notice, just walked out. Suppliers demanding payment up front or cutting ties completely. Clients officially pulling contracts. Westbridge Solutions was bleeding out in the middle of the street, and there wasn't a damn thing Tyler could do to stop it. Funny thing is, even then, he still didn't call me. Not once. No apology, no acknowledgement, no asking for help. Pride was going to be the final nail in the coffin. A few days later, I heard from Steve, the supplier I had called earlier, that Westbridge officially missed its first major payroll. Salaries were delayed, checks were bouncing. The word was out, the fall wasn't quiet anymore. It was loud, public, embarrassing. And there was nothing more brutal than watching a company that once prided itself on loyalty, trust, and reputation get gutted by arrogance and stupidity. Part of me felt sorry for Mr. Grant. He didn't deserve this. He had built something real, something good. It was supposed to be his legacy, and now it was being torn apart in front of everyone's eyes. But for Tyler, I felt nothing. No sympathy, no guilt, no regret. You don't get to treat people like they're disposable and expect loyalty when you need it most. You don't get to set fire to the house and be surprised when the roof caves in. Westbridge Solutions wasn't dead yet, but it was dying fast. And there was only one chapter left in this story. The final collapse. The part where everything Tyler built on arrogance, ignorance, and ego finally came crashing down for good. And I was ready to watch it happen. I wasn't there the day Westbridge Solutions finally died. But I didn't need to be. By then the writing was already on the wall, bold, red, and impossible to miss. It was a chilly Monday morning when I got the call. I remember it because I was sitting in my kitchen, sipping coffee, watching the sunrise through the window. It was one of those rare, slow mornings where the world feels like it's paused just for you. Nancy's name flashed across my phone. I answered immediately. "It's over," she said, voice hollow. I leaned back in my chair, staring up at the ceiling. "Tell me." She took a deep breath. "Tyler called a meeting this morning. What's left of the staff, about 15 people, showed up. He tried to spin it at first, said we were pivoting to a smaller, more agile business model." I almost laughed. Classic corporate talk for, we're screwed but trying to sound smart about it. But then the finance guy, Brad, stood up and said it plain. There's no money, no credit, no projects in the pipeline, no future. He said anyone who stayed past this week probably wasn't going to get paid. I whistled low. Nancy kept going. People walked out mid-meeting, no yelling, no arguing, just stood up and left. It was like watching the air leave a balloon. I closed my eyes, picturing it, the slow, quiet death of a once-proud company. She hesitated before adding, Tyler stayed sitting there, didn't even try to stop them, just stared at his laptop like if he clicked enough tabs he could somehow fix it. I didn't say anything for a moment. What was there to say? In a weird way, it wasn't satisfying, it wasn't triumphant, it was sad. Sad that one man's arrogance could destroy so much. Sad that good people like Nancy had to suffer through it. Sad that Mr. Grant, sitting in a hospital bed somewhere, was probably hearing about it secondhand. But mostly, it was inevitable. You can't treat people like garbage and expect loyalty. You can't gut the relationships that keep you afloat and expect to sail smoothly. You can't fire the guy who knows where all the wires are buried and expect the lights to stay on. Westbridge wasn't just a business, it had been a living thing, built from trust, maintained through respect, sustained by people who actually gave a damn. And Tyler, he had ripped out its heart the day he laughed and fired me without a second thought. I shook my head and sipped my coffee. Nancy, I said quietly, I'm sorry. She gave a sad little laugh. Not your fault, you tried to warn everyone, we just didn't listen in time. What are you gonna do? I asked. Already got a couple offers lined up. Some suppliers you used to work with remember me, said they'd find a spot for me. That made me smile. Loyalty, after all, runs deeper than job titles. You'll land on your feet, I said, better than before. I hope so. We hung up a few minutes later, and I sat there for a long time just thinking. Thinking about how easily things crumble when the wrong hands are at the wheel. Thinking about how success doesn't survive on its own, it has to be fed, cared for, protected. Thinking about how sometimes the best revenge isn't loud or flashy. Sometimes the best revenge is just sitting back, watching someone who thought they were untouchable trip over their own ego. And letting gravity do the rest. I never heard from Tyler again, not a call, not an email, not even a cheap apology. Maybe he was too embarrassed. Maybe he was too stubborn to admit he needed the very people he pushed away. Or maybe, deep down, he still didn't understand what he had done wrong. Didn't matter. As far as I was concerned, that chapter of my life was closed. Westbridge Solutions was gone. But me. I was still standing. Still breathing. Still ready for whatever came next. And if there was one thing I knew for sure after everything, it's that when you build something the right way, on trust, on respect, on real, hard-earned loyalty, it lasts a whole lot longer than someone's ego ever will.